Hello and welcome into our YouTube page. As today we're joined by longtime Senior Associate Athletic Director at Quinnipiac University, Billy Mecca. Billy's been with QU since 1978 and was kind enough to sit down with us today to discuss his career, the industry, and to offer up some advice for others as well. So without further ado, here's that conversation. Let's start at the beginning. I mean, you've had a lengthy career there at Quinnipiac University, starting off as a coach for multiple sports, working your way over to the athletic department. You've been the interim athletic director during transitions. You've been there since 1978. So you tell me about your story, your career, how it began getting into coaching, and then how you made that transition eventually to the administration side of things.
Oh, it'd be my pleasure. Back in 1978, I was graduating from Niagara University. I was there on a basketball scholarship, originally from Maryland. Chose Niagara for a variety of reasons, and played basketball there for 3 years. My first year with a lot of minutes. My sophomore and junior year, they brought in a better player. Who basically took every minute, but it didn't stop me from doubting who I was as a player. So the coach thinking Phil Scafidi was a better player than Billy Mecca, I was okay with. I worked hard every single day, and I learned at that point. I'd always been a great teammate. I learned what it was to be a great teammate without being a star, which has helped me throughout the course of my career. As I'm 20 years old and trying to figure out what am I going to do with the rest of my life, opportunity presents itself at Quinnipiac. My former head coach, Dan Raskin from Niagara, had worked at Quinnipiac, and they were looking for somebody to come in and do a whole bunch of different things, Luke. So my first job at Quinnipiac, I came for basketball. I was with Division II then, assistant basketball coach, head JV basketball, sports information director, athletic trainer, golf coach, tennis coach, instructor in physical education. So I think I had 7 or 8 days, and I remember my first salary was $6,776. So I started Quinnipiac with 800 kids, and back then we were a small Division II school. And honestly, in my recruiting trips, if you could spell Quinnipiac, I gave you an academic scholarship. So that started me on my journey. In my role, and 47 years later, through a variety of different obstacles and roadblocks that the Lord had planned for me, I never left the Quinnipiac, whether it was from cancer at age 23 to a heart attack at age 40. Quinnipiac became my home. I transitioned out of coaching back in 1996 when Quinnipiac went Division I. I had a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old daughter, and I had lost that desire to work with 13 knucklehead basketball players, and thought there was something bigger out there where I could go ahead and help mold the future of an athletic department when we went Division I.
Yeah, and your title now, Senior Associate Athletic Director there at Quinnipiac. What was that transition like for you? You just mentioned it, going from coaching to that administration side full time. Was that an easy transition for you? I mean, you already seemed like you were dipping your toes in that area. Was it an easy transition for you? What was that like to move away from coaching and go to administration?
I tell you what, you just mentioned it was an easier transition because back in the Division II days, not only did you wear 2 hats, being an administrator and being a coach, you also wore 5 other ones with all those other job responsibilities, which clearly gave me a very good understanding of every job here at the institution and in the athletic department. So when I took 2 jobs away and made it one, the transition into administration was honestly pretty seamless.
How have things changed? Obviously, I know we talk to a lot of people in college sports, and we always talk about name, image, and likeness and conference realignment, the transfer portal, all that sort of stuff. But more so off the field, in your time in college athletics, from say 96 when you moved full time away from coaching, how have things changed in college athletics, whether it's I don't know, the hiring process or the types of people working in college athletics now? Have you seen a lot of change in the last about 30 years behind the scenes of college athletics?
Well, I think we've gotten away from why we all got into this business 30 years ago, um, or even 20 years ago. There was, I think the greatest gift you can give your staff or your student athletes is time. Now, when you can mix in encouragement with that time, I think you have an opportunity to maybe have an impact on a coach or on a student athlete. And I think as we move forward into this new era of college athletics, I think we're losing sight of the relationship part of our business, which was guys like me or ladies like me that got into this based on relationships. And unfortunately, it's become far more transactional um, than I would prefer. And I think it's forever changed the wonderful part of the job that I have and others have.
You mentioned those relationships. For those trying to get into this industry or even young professionals trying to move up throughout college athletics, how important is networking? How important are those relationships in college athletics?
Well, you hit it on the head. All the interviews I do for whatever position um, they're applying for, I continually present them that don't silo yourself into a particular office and spend time just with that department, whether it's athletic communications, whether it's sports medicine, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's a coach, that you need to be part of the athletic department. Get to know people and let them know your value, your worth. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and also be part of the community at whatever institution you're at. Um, Unfortunately, nowadays, Luke, in this business, you can get pigeonholed into a certain role and don't have the ability without making connections to ever branch out.
You mentioned the interview process with applicants. We've talked to some people in college athletics, and I don't want this to be a leading question, but some have said that the pool of candidates has changed over the years, that maybe it's a little smaller now, the amount of people that want to work in college athletics, and say when you first started going back to the 70s or when you made that transition in the 90s. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what has your experience been? Have you seen a change in the either amount of candidates or just the actual candidates of those who want to work in college athletics now compared to decades ago?
Well, I would tell you, I would say probably over the last 5 years, I've noticed the biggest change. And I think COVID had a lot to do with that. Um, People were able to step away, spend time away from the daily grind of what we do athletically, the 7 days a week, the 60, 65, 70 hours a week. Granted, the summers are pretty cool. But people were able to sit back and say, hey, for the amount of money I'm making, um, I can have a life, still provide a living for my family. So I do think the applicant pool in athletics has dwindled based on how people view the quality of their life.
And do you think that has changed at all in the hiring process? Do you think maybe you guys at Quinnipiac or other schools, have you had to adjust at all because of this? Or has it been the same status quo, same process to try to find, good employees to come work in college athletics?
I would say the pool is less. You don't have you don't have a for a job that you post, you're probably having six people that you might be really interested in based on what they put down on paper. Uh, and of that six, when you get them on for a Zoom interview or whatever, you're really looking at probably two candidates that might be the right fit. So I think the pool is certainly dwindled, and this generation what we're dealing with now, Generation Z, I think they all want to be sitting in the chair that I'm sitting in, or their boss might be sitting in there. So the grind that my generation went through, and to pay your dues uh, to get where you're going, and putting in the time, effort, and energy, um, it's not the same.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. One of the things that we've done is rolled out intercollegiate.co. It's a job board. We encourage everyone to check it out, intercollegiate.co, most comprehensive job board out there. I would just ask you in general, the value. Do you see value in a job board for those trying to get into college athletics, or maybe even on your side? I don't know if you guys used job boards in the past to try to help fill jobs. Uh, I don't know what it was like when you first got into college athletics. What's your opinion on the value of job boards?
I think it's critical in this new day and age, right? I mean, again, people were getting jobs back when I started, and even 20 years ago, based on the relationships you built. And you knew someone who knew somebody, and they trusted them um, from the bottom of their heart and soul. And if you were recommended, that recommendation was good enough. Nowadays, with all the movement in college athletics, no one really stays in the same place more than 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So, with all the transition of movement, I think that having a central place where you can look for candidates, or candidates can reach out and look for jobs, is the way, the future, and it's going to be how we do business. So I find it critical.
Couple last questions, gearing more towards maybe advice for those trying to get into the industry. What's something you wish you knew coming out of college that you know now that would have helped you, or even something you would tell young people coming out of college now that they need to know that you've learned over the course of your career?
Listen, there's two things in this world that I've learned through the course of my time in college athletics is uh, no one can work harder than you. Um, and if working hard means you need to pick up a broom, or you need to mop a floor, or you need to pull out a bleacher, um, don't be afraid to do it. And no one can outwork you. Human nature is a terrible opponent, and it gives us excuses to say life isn't fair and this is too hard. I learned that there's two type of people in this world: those that do the work and those that take the credit. And I would suggest being in the first group, there's a lot less competition. So don't be afraid to work. And the other thing that I think that's missing, not only in college athletics, but in society as a whole, is listen, no one can be nicer than you. And um, it's a strength to be nice. And people are unkind because they are not comfortable being vulnerable. Now, when people mistake your kindness as a weakness, well, then you turn around and kick their butt, whatever that might be. But I would say the key that I try to explain to people is, um, in order to gain trust and confidence as you as employer, I think you need to be prompt, polite, prepared, and you'll be productive. And that's the 4 P's to the success of what we've had here at Quinnipiac. And it's simple, um, but it's honest advice that I would tell everybody, and do tell everybody that's a candidate for a job, or on a daily basis with our coaches and our student athletes.
Yeah, I love it. I think it makes total sense. Speaking of Quinnipiac, I mean, you've been there for so long, obviously. What are some qualities you would suggest people look for in a work environment to know it's the right fit?
Find a place that you're in a community that cares, that you're part of something bigger than a soccer program, something bigger than um, your particular sport if you want to coach. Be part of a community that cares. Be part of a team that becomes part of an athletic department that also becomes part of an institution. Um, Create something, or be part of a collective group of people all pulling in the same direction.
Last two questions. I'll put you on the spot a little bit. This one, everyone always hates to answer because it's kind of, you have to brag about yourself a little bit, and not everybody likes to talk about themselves like that. But what for you, and maybe you've already touched on it in this conversation, what has allowed you to be as successful as you have been and get to this point in your career? What traits would you point to that have allowed you to have the success you've had?
Well, I would say all the roadblocks that the Lord put in my life, whether that be cancer at age 23, where I had to battle with 2 years of chemotherapy. I would say the heart attack in this chair when I was 41 years old certainly changed my perspective on um, what unconditional support is. I think when you're faced with those obstacles and you meet them head on, I think it makes you better. And those burdens that you can never get past become your greatest blessings. Um, and what I've really learned is what every staff member and student athlete need from their bosses is unconditional support. And we're here to provide a service. We're here to hopefully impact their life on a daily basis. So we prepare them for what lies ahead. And I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't for that heart attack where you start thinking about what happens when you die, and that life doesn't stop, that you really get a sense of maybe a greater calling. And after 90 days of a deep, dark depression, because I didn't know what would happen to me when I die, I gave my life to Christ and I accepted Jesus as my Savior. And I know why He's kept me here at Quinnipiac for 47 years. And I've been blessed. And those 5 burdens in my life during my career at Quinnipiac that I would have never been able to overcome as I went through them are my 5 greatest blessings. And I couldn't be happier or more satisfied with the opportunities I'm provided on a daily basis.
It's perfect. I would love to end it right there, but one last question, and I'll put you on the spot again. Best advice you think you've ever been given? You shared a lot of great advice throughout this conversation. This might be redundant, but what's the best advice that you think you've been given throughout your career or life?
Listen, I had all the answers when I was 21 years old when I'm working at Quinnipiac, and I knew it all. And I was smarter than my boss, Burke Kahn, and I did a job one day and pretty proud of what I had accomplished. And he walked in, took a look, and wasn't real happy. When I said, Coach, you got to be kidding me. Spent 2 years. And he said, here's what I want you to do. When you're done with every job, I want you to turn around, take a look, and make sure it's perfect. And if it's not perfect, do it again. And I've lived my life that way ever since I was 21 years old. So you only have one chance to do something the right way. Do it the right way, and you'll be successful.
A big thank you to Billy Mecca, the Senior Associate Athletic Director at Quinnipiac University, for joining us and taking some time to offer up his advice and insights. And a big thank you to you as well for checking out this video. We encourage you to also check out intercollegiate.co for the most comprehensive job board in college athletics. And also, we encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube page so you don't miss any future content and more of our conversations with those in college athletics. Until next time.